This is your macroeconomics video on Phillips Curve's examples. So I know that we've just learned how to draw and shift Phillips curves, but your Phillips curve is just the same as your aggregate lines, just in the opposite direction because we have switched that horizontal axis to be unemployment instead of employment. So as an example, let's say the Federal Reserve or central bank decides to reduce the unemployment rate somewhere below the natural unemployment rate. They can only do that by making inflation greater than expected. So in the short run, we are going to increase price level, but we're going to make unemployment lower. In the long run, all expectations can catch up. So businesses who once were set with a certain inflation rate, when that changed to be greater than what they thought before, in the long run, businesses can adjust the wages that they're paying workers, and the unemployment rate will go back to the natural rate, whether inflation is high or low. Here's an example. So let's say initially we're at this equilibrium A with our Phillips curve 1 and our long run Phillips curve. Phillips curves do not have any demand line in here, but if there was one, it would cross straight through in an upward sloping line right through that equilibrium A. So expected and actual inflation is at 3% and the unemployment rate is at 6%. And that's where businesses start to make their plans. That's where they decide how much they're going to supply and how many workers they're going to hire and at what rate. If the Federal Reserve decides to make inflation 2% higher than expected, that's going to cause the unemployment rate to fall in the short run because our downward sloping Phillips curve is a trade-off between inflation and unemployment rate. So when we do that, we move along this short-run Phillips curve to equilibrium B here. Inflation has gone up 2% and unemployment rate went down to 4%. Now, it can't stay this way forever. We're off the long-run Phillips curve line. So in the long run, expected inflation is going to now be 5%. Businesses are eventually going to adjust to this new level of prices. They're going to unstick wages, and wages will rise to that 5%, and that will be our new expected inflation rate over time. When that happens, the Phillips curve is going to shift to the right. And that's the same thing as if your short-run aggregate supply line shifted back once nominal wages were changed. So in the end, our Phillips curve is at Phillips curve 2, right on top of our long-run Phillips curve line. So I'm going to have you try an active learning. If you go ahead and get out your active learning paper, do your best on these. We will do some other examples in class. You're going to draw a Phillips curve. Please remember to label your title as well as your axes of inflation and unemployment rate. And then draw a long-run and short-run Phillips curve. So A is asking you to plot the long-run Phillips curve at a natural rate of 5%, and B is asking you to draw a short-run Phillips curve. Your equilibrium there should be at an expected inflation rate of 2%. And then you're going to try to shift properly using the information in Part C and Part D.